one of our ladies outside that she is the last of the parish girls, to which I responded, we saved the best to last. So just don't tell Emily and Ellen I said that, all right? But she is the daughter of my brother Kent and sister-in-law Kathy, and they have two precious kids, Michael and Meredith, and we're glad she could be here tonight and share what God did through her team the last 2 summers. So, honey, you come and share with us.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I can honestly say I never saw myself standing in front of churches and talking to people when I was little itty bitty. I used to have horrible stage fright, I guess you could say. I didn't like being in front of people, but when Uncle Todd and Aunt Miranda asked me to come and talk to you about what is making that noise? Do you hear it? Okay. When they asked me to come and talk to you guys about my missions experience, I couldn't help but say yes, because as it was said in the prayer, that I would share my heart with you. And missions holds a very big chunk of my heart. I have a passion for it. I love it, and God's done a lot in my life through missions. So I'm so excited to talk to you guys about that tonight. However, let me say this, I'm not very good at just talking at people. It makes me uncomfortable. So if I ask you to raise your hand or give me a thumbs up or hoot and holler, no, I'm just kidding. But if you want to ask a question, just stop me. But I do like crowd participation because, like I said, I don't like talking at people. So like Uncle Todd said, my name is Meredith Parrish. I'm 17 years old, and I go to the Early College Academy at JCC in Johnston County. So that's just a little bit about me. I'm a senior this year. And like I said, I just don't feel qualified to stand up here and talk to you about missions because it is something that's so special to me, but God's done a big work in my life through that. And so I'm so excited to share that with you. First, I would like to say thank you to your church, though, because it is very apparent to me that you guys are a missions-minded church, whether it's, I know that you guys send teams to Bulgaria, or you've supported e-teamers in the past, or the lady who is making the jewelry for missions. I mean, that's amazing. Or the hurricane relief stuff, like that is mission work, and you will be rewarded greatly for that one day. And so that's something that's special to my heart, and so just thank you so much for that. Or I know you guys do community outreach and stuff, so that's awesome. Keep up the good work. But anyways, so I've been on 2 e-team trips, one trip in 2015 and then this past summer in 2016. And I know a lot of you guys are familiar with e-team because you guys have had several e-teamers come out of this church. But basically it's a program in the summer for about 2 to 3 weeks where you go and you get to work alongside of foreign missionaries and just see what the mission field is like in different countries, because let me tell you, the missions field in France looks very different from the missions field in Japan, so which are the 2 places that I've been. So I'm thankful for the program and what it's taught me, and I highly recommend it to the youth. Every single one of you should apply to e-team. If you even think about it, just apply, because it's a great program and I would highly recommend it to everybody. So I want to talk to you a little bit about the countries that I've seen and experienced mission work in. And I by no means am saying that I'm an expert because I was only there for 2 weeks, but I definitely learned a lot. So I do want to share that with you guys. So in 2015, I went to France, and I did not go by myself. I mean, I might seem cool, but I ain't that cool. And no, but this is my team, and we actually had the privilege of going with Jerry and Barb Gibbs. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they lived there for 40 years, so it was great. It was kind of like going home for them, and they knew the language, and they knew the people, and we were actually going back to the church that they started there, so that was really cool to be able to see. And but e-team, something else about this is the people on this team are from all over the United States. We have people from Tennessee, Florida, South Carolina, what else do I see? Oklahoma, Alabama, South Carolina. I don't know if I already said that. But we have people from all over. So it was really cool to be with other teenagers who have the same passion and same interest and love of Christ that I do. So that's a really good plus for e-team. But we did go to France, and I'm sure as soon as you think of France, you think of Paris, and you think of the Eiffel Tower. And it is beautiful. I have been there. I love it. But that's not all there is to France. We spent about 1 or 2 days in Paris, just sightseeing, but also seeing what it looked like in the city, what missions work looked like there. But we also spent time in other cities in France. And so this picture was actually in Saint-Nazaire, which is the first city I went to. And we stayed with homestay families the whole time we were there. So we got to France, we drove to our first city from the airport, and they said, okay, we're going to meet your homestay families, and you're going to go home with these people tonight, and you don't speak the same language as them, and you don't know them, but you're going to stay in their house, and you're going to like it. And we were like, we just got here like 5 minutes ago. So we were feeling a little bit overwhelmed, but luckily my homestay family was very nice. He was actually the pastor in the church. He took over from our leader whenever Jerry and Barb came back to the States. So they took us to a beach that was very close to their house, actually, and it was beautiful. But I remember sitting on this rock, and I was like, I'm just trying to get a cool picture. I was like, hey, take my picture so I can put it on Instagram when I get home. But I was sitting there thinking, and I mean, it was just beautiful. And just a feeling of peace came over me. You know, I was in this place where they didn't speak the same language as me. I didn't know these people. And they were driving me all around this town that I've never been to before. But they took us to this beach, and I saw God's creation, and I said, okay, God, whatever you got to show me, show me. But I was still nervous. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. So, but that was a really beautiful thing. So France is beautiful, the Eiffel Tower, the beaches, and the people are beautiful too. I think one of my favorite things about missions, other than spreading the word of God, is the world is beautiful, but it is broken, and that's why we need missions. But this was a picture of us at one of our outreach programs in France, and there are these little bikes, and you have to pedal, but they don't move very well. So I'm over in the top corner kind of struggling. I don't know if you can see me, but it was fun, but the French people were a lot better at it because I don't think we have those in America. I don't know what they are, but it was weird. But anyways, the people are beautiful, and that's something I really like about France. And then this lady, her name is Annie, and I also stayed in her house, and she was just a really sweet lady, and she showed me that, you know, we don't have to speak the same language, but she could, she just did little things that let us know that she was glad we were there, and she was glad that we shared her love of Christ, because in France, they are the only Christians they know, you know, in their workplace. So I'm going to ask a question. Is everybody ready to raise their hand? Okay, so how many of you know another Christian, just in general? Raise your hand. How many of you know a Christian in your workplace? How many of you have Christians in your family? How many of you have Christians in your school? Somebody else that doesn't go to this church that you know of? Okay, these people don't. They don't know other Christians. In her workplace, she's probably the only one. And people look at her funny when she says, oh, I believe in Jesus. If they don't, they might say, who? Because they don't know who Jesus is. You know, or they're like, what are you talking about? That's strange. So I want to get into what does religion look like in France. So I'm not sure the exact years because I'm not good at history, but a long time ago in France, they got rid of religion because it was like the Catholic Church was just controlling everything. So they're like, we're not doing religion anymore. So anything religious or about your beliefs, you don't really have. You have the freedom to talk about it, but you don't because people will think you're going to be weird. So less than 1% of people there know who Jesus Christ is. I didn't say that they were saved. I said they know who he is. You know, you can go to a grocery store here and you can say, hey, excuse me, ma'am, do you know who Jesus is? And she might say, I mean, maybe something with the church. Or you might say, ma'am, are you familiar with God? And she's like, oh, you know, maybe I went to church with my grandma when I was little. But most people can tell you something about Jesus or God or the church. These people here, they maybe have heard the name of Jesus. And if they have, it's in the Catholic Church, which we'll talk about later. So what do we do to reach out to these people there? Because they're very closed off to the idea of religion. So we can't just go out and shake people's hand and say, hey, I'm Meredith. I'm from North Carolina, and I'm here to tell you about Jesus. You need to be saved. That's not going to work there, okay? So what did we do? So here is me and my friend Taylor, and we were washing windows, you know, just going out into the community and serving. And this actually was at the church, but people would stop by and they're like, what are you guys doing? And so the missionaries were able to tell them, you know, this is a group here from America, and they've come to help us out a little bit. And so they're washing our windows or pulling weeds or whatever. This was at a separate church, and we were just painting. And you're going to notice that I say we did a lot of stuff in the church. There, it's, like I said, they're very closed off to the idea of religion, so going out is kind of a foreign concept to them, I guess. Like if we were to walk up to somebody on the street and say, hey, my name's Meredith, I'm here to tell you about Jesus, that's not going to work. So we were there to encourage the church people so that they can go out and form those relationships in their communities and, tell people about Christ and invite them into the church. We also pulled weeds. I've pulled more weeds in France than I did in America. My dad will tell you that. I'm not very good at yard work. But there, we really had to, help them out, not prove ourselves. That's wrong. But, you're there for a reason. And so I was pulling weeds like it was my job. But this picture is very interesting. I'm going to stay here for a few minutes. We were probably a week in at this point. So we were about tired of hearing French because it's like brain overload. We don't speak this language, okay? And we go into this little brick city. It's very historical there, apparently. And the missionary said, okay, we're going to do an activity. And we're like, okay, yes, we can do this. And so they said, you're going to go find somebody, and you're going to ask them 4 questions. I said, stop. I don't speak French. I speak English. They're not going to understand what I'm saying, and they're not going to be able to answer me. And so I was like, Matt, because that was the missionary's name. Matt Price was who we were with at this point. And I said, Matt, I can't do that. Like, I don't speak French. And so he said, no, just hear me out. So he had to ask them what was one thing they loved about French culture, what was one thing we had to see before we left France, what was their favorite French food, try to say that 3 times fast, and then we had to ask them what role did God, Jesus, or religion play in French culture. And so we're like, okay, we'll try it. And they said, here's a tip. Either ask the older generation of like market owners, like shop owners, because they've had to interact with tourists before, or ask younger people because they have to learn English in school. So we're like, okay. So still feeling a little bit nervous, but we're like, we're going to go out and do this. So we go out and, we're like going at it. Well, we had been to a few people before this group of young people, but we walked up to them and, we asked them the first 3 questions, like, where should we see? And they were so excited to share their country with us. And they were like, you need to go here, you need to go here, you need to eat this and that. And then we got to the 4th question. And we said, what role does God or Jesus play in your country? And they just kind of looked at us. And so we repeated the question, and we even translated, like, Jesus and God in their country, because we have learned those words. But, and they just looked at us and they said, who? And I just stood there and I was like, because if I asked that question here, even if they had nothing, even if they didn't believe in God, they'd be like, I'm not talking to you about that. They knew what I was talking about. These people asked me who Jesus was. And I had never been exposed to that before. And so we all left this place. There are amazing shops there, and we shopped a little bit, but we all left there crying because we saw these people they haven't heard Jesus' name. And so, and what do you do in that situation? It really does break your heart. So just let me encourage you to pray for the country of France. It's very dark. I'm sure many of you have heard of the terrorist attacks that have been happening there. They have slowed down, but that doesn't mean that the terrorists don't have a presence in France. So continue to pray for them. Pray for your missionaries. They're American. They live in a different country. And so people don't accept them as French because they're not French, but they're not American because they live in France. So it's this weird middle ground, and just pray for them, but also pray for their kids because their kids experience that on a completely different level in the schools. Matt and Christina Price have 2 twin little girls. And I think they're in 1st grade this year. They're 6 years old, and they have friends. It's not like they don't have friends, but when somebody asks them, what's your dad's job? Where do your parents work? And they say in a church, and then they say in a Protestant church, they're shut off. Those kids are told, you don't be friends with them because that is strange. So just pray for them, but also let me encourage you by saying this. You do have French brothers and sisters in Christ. They are over there, and they are working in their church, and their church is growing. So just continue to pray for them and be thankful for them each and every day. So that was 2015, France, love it. But then in 2016, I got to go to Japan. There's actually 2 Japan teams for E-Team. One goes to Tokyo, and the other goes to Hokkaido. And so I got to go to Hokkaido this past summer, and it's beautiful. if you notice, I talked about the things I loved about France and how it was beautiful, and I love France, but also my heart breaks for France. It's the same thing with Japan, and a lot of people would ask me when I got back, they said, which trip did you like more, France or Japan? And I was like, well, you can't really compare those two because they're so different, and you'll see that, but they do hold that common ground that, you know, there's a lot of beautiful things there, but it's very broken. But wait, I got to tell you something about France. I forgot. I started talking about Catholicism a little bit. And the religion in France, most people will claim atheism, and if they don't, they'll say that they're Catholic. And there's these huge, beautiful Catholic churches, like, everywhere. And people go in and, you know, they light their candles and they leave. But it's not, if you were to ask them, you know, what they believe or why they did that, they probably couldn't tell you. It's just a tradition that you do because grandma taught you to do it. And so, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with her, but Mimi is a girl actually from France that we met there, but she's studying in America to become a missionary to go back to France. And she's actually leaving, I think I saw on Facebook the other day, she's leaving in December. So, but she told us, she said, don't let Christianity become in your country what Catholicism has become in mine. And so let me backtrack. So Catholicism there has become a tradition. It's just something you do. You go in, you light your candle, and you leave. You can't tell people about it. Don't let Christianity become here what Catholicism became there. Don't let coming to church be something you check off your list. You know, why do you come to church? Be able to explain to these people, what do I believe? Why do I come to church? Why do I meet with people who believe the same things as me? Why do I not just come in, sit in the pew, sing a few songs, and go home? You know, don't let it become that. Don't let it become your tradition and your weekly routine. You know, find purpose in that. You know, just enjoy those things and don't let it become just a tradition, as Mimi said. Okay, back to Japan. Yes.
Can you tell them about the activity you did in the graveyard?
Yes. Okay, back to France. Sorry, I promise I'm going to make my mind up soon. But so we did several activities with interacting with the country, but another one that we did was we went to a huge ginormous graveyard, and this goes back to less than 1%. And they said, we're going to split up in teams, and we all went different ways, and we're supposed to just count the graves. So we're just walking through, I'm like, this is boring, counting graves, you know. And there were like over 6,000 graves, I think, in that we counted. And we all met back up after like 45 minutes. And they're like, okay, so we're going to kind of show you guys what this looks like. So we did like 6,000 graves, and we found out like less than 1%, and I don't remember the exact number, but maybe like a row of graves would have known Jesus, would have heard of his name. And so I just looked around, I mean, just surrounded me with all these graves, you know, and they're lost souls. They're souls that most likely died and went to hell because nobody was there to tell them. So, like I said, encourage you before, pray for those missionaries each and every day, that they would just have the passion renewed each and every day to go out and tell these people. Okay, for real this time. Any more questions before we move on to Japan? I see Mr. Darren thinking of something just to say. Okay, are we good? Okay, Japan. So this was this past summer, and it was beautiful. This was a picture that I took just riding on the bus to the church. I mean, in Hokkaido, you have the mountain. It's very mountainous, and actually on Hokkaido was actually where the 1974, 72 Winter Olympics were held there, so that's a pretty interesting fact. But it was beautiful. We went to this volcanic place, and I cannot tell you what that says because I don't speak or read Japanese, but we went there, and it was like a sulfur deposit or something, so I had gold jewelry on my hands, and after being there for like 30 minutes, it had turned gold. And so that was pretty interesting because it reacted with the sulfur in the air. But it was just another beautiful place that we were taken to. We hiked a few mountains, so that was pretty cool. It was beautiful. But my most favorite part of Japan were the people. This lady, her name is Haruka, and she was great at making balloon animals and balloon hats. She made the hat that I was wearing. To this day, it's my favorite balloon thing I've ever seen in my life. But anyways, I had to leave it in Japan. This lady, she's a beautiful soul. I actually got to stay in her house, and she struggled with drug abuse, and she went through rehab, and but now she is so on fire for the Lord, and she works in an elementary school actually, and each and every day she's out there telling people. And so that's amazing that I saw a Japanese Christian who's so passionate about telling other people. But she was very close to me, and I just love her. But this little girl, her name is Manami. She's in 3rd grade, and she's the only Christian in her school. So we went and played games in the elementary school there, and we taught them like American games, and then they taught us Japanese games. It was really fun, but then at the end when we left, they said, you know, Manami's the only little girl in the school who's probably ever heard the name of Jesus. And we had just played with like thousands of kids. So, I mean, it was really eye-opening, but pray for her and her family. Her dad's the pastor in one of the churches there, and so pray for her and her family that they would stay strong, even though they don't know many Christians. How many of you have heard of ramen noodles? Raise your hand. They're so cheap, so good, love them. What's your favorite flavor? Just wondering. Chicken? I like chicken too. But anyways, so I got to go eat real ramen noodles. They have like whole restaurants dedicated to ramen there, and it was amazing. And so I was staying with Haruka one night, and she was like, let's go get ramen. She didn't actually say it like that, but she could speak a little bit of English because she lived in Canada for some time. But anyways, so we went to go eat ramen. It was really good. The food was amazing. I did have to eat octopus one time because they were trying to be kind and give us like a delicacy there, and it was interesting. But we were thankful. That was part of missions we had to experience, is being thankful, even though when you're really not, you know, you just smile and chew and swallow and say thank you. But they had sushi there. How many of you have had sushi? How many of you like it? Me either. I don't like sushi. But we did eat it there, and so there it was okay. It still wasn't my favorite because I don't like fish, but it was pretty cool to experience. And then we went to McDonald's there. I never thought I would go to McDonald's in Japan, but we did, and it was actually really good. The chicken nuggets were real chicken, so that was really good. But okay, this next picture, I'm glad I'm not in the pulpit because I don't know how I feel about that. But just don't freak out, okay? This is a toilet in Japan. And let me just say that the bathrooms in Japan are so clean and like high tech. Like this toilet played music for you if you so choose, and they had heated toilet seats, and like it was kind of weird. But anyway, so moving on. But I just want you to know the bathrooms in Japan, 10 out of 10. And then something, just a little bit about the culture in Japan. They are very clean, but you take your shoes off whenever you enter a place. So like if you enter a person's house, you take your shoes off at the door, and then you step up into their house. Or at the church, you took your shoes off and then stepped into the church. So it's not weird to see people walking around in their bare feet or in sock feet. But when you went to the bathroom, they have bathroom slippers. So you would leave your shoes at that like little white strip. It said something, but I don't know what it said. But you would take your shoes off there, and then you'd slip on these little bathroom slippers and, you know, walk in there, whatever. And then when you come back out, you take them off and you put them on these little feet slots, and then you put your shoes back on and you leave. It was so interesting, but we made a few mistakes sometimes and would come out in the house wearing our bathroom slippers, and they're like, no, no, no. But so we had to learn that and get used to it. Another thing I really like about Japan is it's very quiet. Like within 10 minutes of being back in the States after I came back, I had a headache because people were just so loud in public places. But like this was a train station, and we got to ride the subway, and that was really interesting. But walking down these steps, I remember, like, it was so quiet, you could have heard a pin drop. I mean, besides, like, the shuffling of the shoes, you know, or whatever, people walking. But they're very quiet, and it's just a respect thing. They don't want to interfere, like, with your privacy or your time. If you're in a store and your phone rings, you don't answer it because you don't want to, like, disturb somebody else in the store. So at first, you know, they're very reserved and they're quiet. And so when I got on the plane and I saw Japanese people just kind of staring at me and not really saying anything, I was kind of weirded out. I was like, these people don't like me. It's going to be a really weird trip. But I just learned it's just a cultural thing. They just are trying to respect you by being quiet. So that was really nice, though, because, I don't know, it's just something different to experience. But it's beautiful and I love it, but there is a real need for missions there. You know, people don't believe in Jesus and they don't know about him. However, spirituality there is not a very foreign concept. They don't have a hard time believing in something higher than them. So most people claim Shintoism or Buddhism as their main religion, and some people even claim both, which is kind of weird. They're both Shintoists and Buddhists, so that's interesting. But this was actually a Buddhist, like, temple thing, but you couldn't go inside. It was like this big bell, and what they believed is that you go to the priest and you would ask him if you had sinned or something to go up into this like temple thing and ring the bell so many times. And then after he got finished ringing the bell, you were done. Your sins were gone. And so that was kind of something interesting to see. This is at a Shinto shrine, and that little rope hanging is called a holy rope. So once you walked under that, it was like you were in the spiritual like realm or something. So that was different, because here you just walk in church and you come sit on the pew and you're still the same as you were outside the church. But there you're in touch with your spirit after you walk under that rope. I didn't believe that. I didn't feel no difference because I don't, but it's kind of weird. Anyways, also they're very big on idols, and they'll make, or actually you can kind of see here. So there's the holy rope, and then you see those steps going up to a different building. And so you would go up to that building, and there are these long bells hanging down. You ring the bell, and you like clap, and then you would bow. And that was like you were calling the gods to come talk to you, or your ancestors, because that is what they believe, is that their ancestors will heal them and give them prosperity and stuff. So, and then you would leave. A lot of people left alcohol just because it was expensive there, and it's like their best, they're giving offerings to their ancestors. So going along with that, there are these little idols, and they're just concrete, which is something I found interesting, because you always learn about idols. Like when you're learning the 10 Commandments, it's like you have no other idols or whatever, no other gods before me. And so I'd always thought like little statues, but I hadn't really seen that here a whole lot. But like it's very prominent over there. There actually are statues, and people will go and bow and pray and leave money or alcohol or whatever they have to these things, and each idol is something different. So like one of them was holding like a baby, and so if you prayed to that one, it was to help your children in the afterlife. Or if you knew somebody that was expecting, it was like to help their baby have like good health or something. So you could pray to each one of these things for different needs, but it was it's really sad to see that they are putting their faith in something that man has made. It's concrete. That rock did not just fall from heaven like that. A man had to make that. Somebody had to shape those idols and make them, and people are putting their whole life, they're counting on these statues to give them, hope. So,
Mary,
yes.
do you know what they do with the stuff that they leave there?
I'm not sure, but we did ask that question, and I'm pretty sure they told us they collect it and give it to the church. Or the church, it's not a church, but if there's money out there, then they use that to better their building or buy something, so it doesn't actually go to where they're meaning it to go to. So there we did some other like service projects. We painted the church, but my most favorite thing we did was we got to go into the Japanese high school, and there you are required to learn English all the way up from elementary to high school. And so these kids were so excited to have like the American kids come and talk to us, and they asked us for our autographs and if they could have pictures, because they think all Americans are on TV. So that was like interesting. But you would go in to these classrooms, and it would be like one American student to like a group of 5 or 6 Japanese kids. And so they would talk to you. They had like written little things down about like their favorite possession or whatever. And so they would do their best to. They can write English really well, but speaking it, they had trouble. So we would help them like pronounce the words and stuff. And some of us had really deep Southern accents, so Japanese people probably talking like us now, but hey, it's fine. But it was really cool. And so these girls, whenever we were finished, so they would read their things with us, and then I would ask them like basic like conversational questions, like what's your name? How old are you? Do you have any siblings? What's your favorite thing to do? And they would like understand you, and they would tell you. So that was really cool, interacting with them. But we went around to different groups, and I think we were able to talk to 1,500 students that week. So that was really cool. And we couldn't tell them, we can't just sit down and be like, let me tell you about Jesus. But if they asked any questions, like we had picture books, and so a lot of us would put pictures of our churches in there, so they would ask, what's that? And we could tell them, this is where I go to church, and I believe in Jesus, and kind of explain from there. And then we could also invite them into the church for a yakisoba party that we were having. Yakisoba is a Japanese dish, It's really good. It's kind of like lo mein. Have you guys heard of that from like the Chinese takeout? You know, it's kind of like that, but it's Japanese. And so we invited them into the church, and actually some of them came, and they wouldn't come into the church if it was like, we're going to have vacation Bible school or like something like that. But if they could teach the Americans how to do something, like make yakisoba, they were coming into the church. So that was really interesting. I would just like to go ahead and warn you guys, do not mess with me because I've taken a Japanese karate class. No, I'm kidding. But they did invite me to join one of their clubs for the day. And so we go in and start doing some karate. And I knew it was over when 2 guys in black belts came out there and started punching the air. I was like, I'm out. I can't do this. But like, I'm not kidding. We stretched and I was out of breath. And then we had like 30 more minutes to go. So it was a workout for sure. But we also got to go into the elementary school. I kind of talked about that a little bit before with Manami. And we taught them duck, duck, goose. And they didn't know what in the world a duck or a goose is, but they would say it. They'd be like, duck, duck, goose. And, you know, we could play with them. That was really cool. And then they taught us some Japanese games too. But you could just see, I mean, as soon as we came in, the Japanese school system is very rigorous and it's very difficult. And so as soon as we came in and they told them that we're going to play games, they were like, yes. And so they were like grabbing us by our hands and just running us down to the gym. And you could tell that they were so excited that we were there. So then saying bye was really hard. We came out and just, you know, we're hugging them all bye because the Japanese, like, adults and teenagers, they're not very touchy, but kids are kids everywhere. I mean, not being touchy is something that they have learned from their culture, but kids would come up and just hug you, and that was so sweet. But this little girl, I was telling her bye, and I went to go hug her, and I just picked her up, and she would not let go of me. And so that was, it was hard to leave her because I didn't know what she was going home to, you know, at the end of the day. But I got the translator to tell her, you know, you're special, and you were made special. And so I don't know if you guys remember the lady I talked about before, Haruka. She worked at this elementary school, and so she was actually the lady who translated that and, you know, told this little girl that I thought she was special. And she said that after we left later that day, that little girl came back up to her and she said, why did you tell me that? Like, I'm not special. And so Haruka was able to tell her, you know, God made you special, and she was able to share with her through that. So that was really amazing. But I told you guys that the Japanese like to teach the American stuff, but they also love to learn what America's like. So we had a hot dog party, and that was so fun. They didn't really know how to eat them because you can't eat them with chopsticks. So we had to help them out a little bit, but they really enjoyed it. And then another thing that really blessed my heart was being able to stay with the Japanese people. And I don't know if you can see, but the lady's holding a box of saltwater taffy. We were encouraged to bring something from our home, and I was like, well, I like to go to the beach a lot, so I took her some saltwater taffy, and then she messaged me on Facebook a little bit later and was like, it's so good, we love it, we don't have anything like it. So that was kind of interesting. And then just sitting down and you know, having conversation with these people. I couldn't speak Japanese, but you know, we would draw stuff to communicate. And actually, you can see I have my notebook out there, my notebook and my pen. Fun fact about Japan, they have 3 different alphabets. Here we have one that has 26 letters, and that's it. There they have 3 different ones that have like tons of characters in each. And the little girl at Manami in 3rd grade, she wrote my name in all 3 alphabets. She knows all of them. So that was pretty interesting. And then I was able to give my testimony. And the girl in the white shirt, you can see there in the picture, her name's Megan Snow. We actually were able to stay with the Snows there. They've been there for quite some time, and they have 6 kids. And Megan is 20 years old, and so she was able to translate my testimony. So that was really cool. And then I just made some great friends. It's weird what God can use to connect you with. I don't know, this is gonna sound really weird, but this girl, her name's Yuna, and she's 23 years old. And some of the missionaries had heard when I got there that Meredith loves Taylor Swift. And so somebody had told them that I loved her music or something like that. And so they said, we have the perfect girl for you to talk to. You have to meet her. And so I found out when I got to the church that she loved Taylor Swift too. And we had both been to a concert, and it was, anyways, not important. But we both connected on that level, you know, and I still am able to talk to her. And she's actually not saved. She goes to the church for English classes. So just keep her in your prayers. She's in a church, which we can thank God for, but she doesn't believe yet. So just continue to pray that God would work in her life. So that's my story. That's my missions experience. I love it. It's my passion. But let's talk about what we can do here, because as big of a mission field as there is in France and Japan, there's a huge mission field here. And we should talk about that. So I feel like a lot of people say, you know, I know that I'm supposed to like witness to people and stuff, but I never know what to say. And that is me all the time. I don't know what I'm supposed to say to get these people to listen to me or to tell them about Jesus. How many of you guys have felt that way? I don't know what to say. I don't know how to start that conversation. So I found this verse, Luke 12:12, and it says, "For the Lord will show you at that time what you should say." The Lord will show you at that time. So, you know, I feel like so many times it's like the build up, you know, I'm so nervous about what am I going to say? But if we just take that leap of faith and just start talking to these people about what you love and what God has done in your life, God will give you the words to say to those people. Also, I think a lot of people will have the misconception that, you know, you have to say these things to people to get them to come to Christ. But also this verse says, in John 13:35, "By this everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another." How many of you believe that love is a kind of a foreign concept in our world today? Raise your hand. Okay, so if they see you out there loving somebody and, you know, just caring for them or helping somebody at the grocery store, they're like, she is psycho, or they're going to be like, wow, that's really cool. I like that. I wonder what's different about her or him or whoever. So those verses are really encouraging to me, but I kind of want to leave with this, the Great Commission, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with it and you've heard it before, but let's just read it together. So Matthew 28:18 says, "And Jesus came and spoke to them, saying," them being the disciples, "all authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth." Let's pause there. He said, all authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth. You know, sometimes I get really scared to go to school the next day or something like little, you know, or it's hard to go through life or whatever, but God has the authority in heaven and on earth. You know, he still is in control here. So you can walk with faith, you know, knowing that you don't have to have the authority. You don't have to be in control because your God is, you know. So I find comfort in that. But then he continues in Matthew 28:19, and he says, "Go." Not sit here, not just come to church and, you know, get what you need for yourself, but go out into your community and share with these people. You don't have to go to Japan or France or anywhere, California, or, you know, you don't have to go to another state even. You can stay here and still do missions work, and so just remember that. But anyways, "Go therefore and make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all things that I commanded you. And lo," and this is the part that gets me every time, that means a lot to me, "and lo, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. Amen." I mean, that, I'm going to read it again because it's just good. "And lo, I am with you always, even to the end of the age." Amen. And God is saying that. That I is God. God, the creator of heaven and earth, is with you always, even to the end of the age. And sometimes I think we forget that, you know, we hear about ISIS and we hear about these attacks and we hear about, you know, the presidential election and the world's going to end because we don't know what to do and all this stuff. But it says even to the end of the age. I mean, the world could end at any time. Jesus could come back at any time, don't get me wrong. But God is going to be with you to the end, you know, whatever happens, whoever becomes president, wherever ISIS attacks next, you know. God is going to be with us always. And so that's just really comforting to me. So I don't know if you guys find that comforting, but I love it. So let me just challenge you with this. You may not be meant to go. Don't, you know, I'm not coming here to tell you you're doing something wrong by staying here, because you're not, you know, but I will tell you, and I think a lot of people think, you know, I don't know what God's purpose is for my life. And I'm about to tell you this is for free, okay? God made you to serve him. That's the purpose of your life. That's it, you know? And it's how you do that you have to seek his will in. But I can tell you that is a commonality between all of us, is that God made you to serve him. God made you to bring people to him. And so you may not be meant to go across the ocean or whatever, but you are meant to serve him and bring people to him right here in Washington or wherever you live. But also while you're here and you're doing your part, you can send people by supporting, you know, your missionaries. You can pray for them. Each and every day I challenge you, pick somebody, you don't have to know their name. Pick a missionary in Kazakhstan, or just somebody. Just pray for their mission work there. Pray that they would have strength and that, you know, they would feel God's love there and that they would know that they're not alone, because that is something that they do face, and so you can pray for them. But let me just as I said before, you guys are a very mission-minded church, and I do appreciate that. But don't quit. Don't say, well, this week I'm just going to take a week off because I'm really tired. No, go out and tell somebody. Show Jesus to somebody this week, whether that be through helping them or, I don't know, anything. Show, by this you will know that you are my disciples. If you love one another, find some way to just love on somebody this week, because that's so rare. And that's something I have to work on too, because I'm not very good at that sometimes. Sometimes things get in my way, or I lose sight of what's really important, if we're being honest. So I do challenge you to do that. But I also challenge you, if you have the opportunity to go on a missions trip, take it. I mean, drop everything and go, because I will tell you your life will be changed forever. At UT may tell you, parents, hug your kids goodbye, because I promise you won't be getting the same kids back. And at first, the first year, my parents were like, well, what? Like, what are you talking about? But it just means, God will work in your heart and he'll change you. So I do encourage you, youth, apply for E-Team. That's all I'm going to say. And I'll probably say it again tonight. But anyways, apply if you can. I just want to end with this. Our job is, it's important that you know Christ and that you're going to heaven. That's important. But from the time you get saved, to whenever you die, you got to take as many people as you can with you. There are lost souls everywhere. So just take those people with you. Love on them. Show them Christ each and every day. And just take them with you so that we can have just even more big party in heaven. You know what I mean? But yeah. So that's really all I have to say. Like I said, I'm not a preacher. I don't feel qualified to be talking to you guys tonight. But missions is something that's very special in my heart. And I hope that you will, if nothing else, if you didn't get anything else from what I said tonight, just pray for your missionaries. Pray for how you can love on people this week and be an example to them and show them Christ. Yes. That's my dad, everyone.
In terms of impact, and wondering if the E-Team program has an impact or makes an impact after you're gone, can you share with them the story about the waitress the
Yes.
last night you were there in Japan?
In Japan, we had gone to a restaurant the very last night before we headed back to the airport to fly home. And, we were kind of thinking about, well, we're only here for 2 weeks. Like, do we really have a big impact here? And, that is something that you struggle with while you're there. But this waitress came up to us, and I saw her keep, looking at us. I'm like, what in the world? Well, she started talking to the missionary, and she was like, I remember when I was in 3rd grade, an American group, an E-Team, she actually remembered that we were called E-Team, came to my school, and they played with us, and that meant so much to me. And so we all got free popsicles. I was like, score! But no, but people, the kids do remember, and if nothing else, we're there to encourage the church that does exist there, and the kids there, and the missionaries. So, yes. Any more questions? Not from my dad. Go ahead.
The significance of is that peace or with all the...
Oh, in Japan, yes. Okay, so a little girl in my church, she told my mom, she was like, you can tell Meredith's been to Japan because everybody's doing peace signs. And I was like, that's actually not me. In Japan, that's just something they do because they think if you hold your fingers up like this, it makes your face look smaller. So you would say, 1, 2, 3, cheese, and everybody would be like, putting their hands up. So yeah, any more questions about culture or anything? Yes, sir.
Over here, we have a hard time getting to school talking about Christ. Over there, do they have any problems for you going into the school?
Yes, sir. They didn't have an issue. They saw that we were American more than that we were Christians. So like I said, when we went into the schools, we could help them learn English, and then we couldn't come in there and say, we're here to talk to you about Jesus. They knew while we were there because it's really strange to see just an American group coming in. So they kind of knew, especially the principal and the administration. But the kids, if they asked us questions, we could answer, but it wasn't like we could just go in there broadcasting the gospel. Any more questions? Yes, ma'am.
What effect has this mission trip had on you and your faith?
Me and my faith. I'm not going to cry. I think that just seeing how, growing up here, I thought, God is God of America. And I thought that. But going out and seeing that God is God of France, God is God of Japan, and, he has a plan for those people's lives too, that he loves the Japanese soul just as he does the American soul. Seeing that, I think it's helped me realize how big God is, and I still have a hard time thinking about that. And it's also taught me how to be happy with my whole heart. I think sometimes especially here in the South, we're happy with our face. Hey, how are you? It's good to see you, Shug, or something like that. Bless your heart. You know, but are you really happy with your heart? Are you really concerned about how that person's doing? And so I think being over there and not being able to say, bless your heart, how are you doing? You know, they didn't know what I was saying, but actually having to find a way to communicate and show them love, not with my face, with what I said. You know, I think that really helped me learn how to love these people in my heart, not just my face. Anybody else? Any more questions? Not all at once. Okay, well, if not, thank you guys so much for having me. I was really excited about being here this Wednesday, but I might come back next Wednesday if y'all have a trunk or treat, whatever. I love me some candy. No, I'm kidding. But thank you guys so much.